I'm very thankful to be here and have this opportunity to share with you my knowledge and definitely my passion. And I look forward to giving this presentation today. So we'll go ahead and get started. Right, a little bit about myself. Donna already did a great job introducing me. I graduated from University of Central Florida. I am an actual Floridian, which is wonderful. Few and far between these days, it seems. I started my career in health education, and I worked for about 10 years in that, working with community hospitals and giving different education-based events, and also producing some segments for television with various different healthcare providers. I transitioned into occupational therapy when I met an occupational therapist. It only took one. Definitely changed my life. And I graduated from the University of Toledo with my doctorate in 2018, and started right away, ground running with low vision. Hit the ground running and got a certification in aging in place. And really, this was something that I was very interested in trying to figure out how, both my research and also my kind of ending capstone project in graduate school, and how to help the elderly or help individuals who are older in age stay in their homes longer and as long as they want to, and be able to meaningfully still participate in things that they love. Low Vision Works has been around since 2001. It was founded by Michelle Vanden Doorn, and with our vision rehabilitation program, we only have occupational therapists on staff, but we see people in the community and their home. It is covered by Medicare. We are a healthcare provider. All right. So occupational therapy, maybe you're not aware of what occupational therapy is, or OT for short. Occupational therapy practitioners. I love this quote because it definitely embodies what we're all about. We ask what matters to you, not what's the matter with you. We are interested in making sure that we're helping individuals regain or maintain what they want to do, or they have to do, or what they're expected to do every day. And so that can involve rehabilitation, but it can also involve habilitation. It can involve education. It can involve community. It's a very holistic based practice. As I mentioned, we're healthcare providers, so we're very well trained in cognition and aging and the process of aging. And being able to modify not only the environment, but maybe the task, in teaching different types of tools and use of different assistive technology and devices, both high tech, maybe you're thinking of maybe wearables and so on and so forth, maybe smart home based technology, but also low tech items, something as simple as a regular magnifier or regular lighting, and kind of how to position it in better locations. We're interested in what the client wants to do. So that's where we are very interested in what motivates somebody to be able to utilize technology or utilize strategies and tools that can make them be able to participate in life more meaningfully. So today, hopefully we can understand some elements that increase risk for falls, particularly in older adult population, and specifically highlighting vision, understanding different elements of vision impairment, and that affect particularly mobility, and then learning practical strategies and methods for decreasing falls within the population. Okay, so first let's talk about the prevalence and really severity of falls. Can't do a lecture without some statistics. So every year, about 3 million, unfortunately, are treated in the emergency room departments due to injuries from falls. And sadly, over 800,000 are hospitalized. Often these are serious injuries, which are particularly troubling as they can lead to loss of independence. This is where occupational therapy and different other rehabilitation programs come in. And we see many of these in inpatient rehab or skilled nursing facilities, or even on into the care spectrum, into their home and communities. If we consider the cost, in 1 year alone, the medical costs associated with falls were over $50 billion, most of which was covered by either Medicare or Medicaid. And the cost is not just financial, of course, it's also personal. As I mentioned, the serious injuries from falls do severely limit the ability to carry out daily activities independently and safely. And it contributes greatly. What we do every day contributes, of course, to how we are and what we love and our quality of life overall. Okay, so highlighting specifically hip fractures, because this is a huge area and directly related to fall injuries with those with vision impairments. The cost index, of course, for somebody with a hip fracture globally is around $10,000, but health and social costs over at a 12 months being about $43,000. That's a huge number, and usually inpatient costs being the major driver of that. That's from a study in 2017. And from other studies, we found that patients with hip fractures frequently have hearing and vision impairment together, which complicates their rehabilitation process as well. So if we are going into one of those inpatient facilities or skilled nursing facilities or into the home, this can also slow down the process, and we're only allotted so many kind of standardized visits in a lot of these cases, and sometimes it doesn't. The rehabilitation isn't always completely effective for those that also have hearing and vision impairments together. Other studies have found, of course, connecting poor visual acuity, stereopsis, or being able to see in 3D, contrast sensitivity, or this is sometimes called low contrast acuity, or being able to see without perfect contrast. So perfect contrast would be 100% black on 100% white. Being able to see gradations, not decreased ability to be able to see gradations, are all associated with increased fall risk, but also specifically risk of hip fracture in older adults. There's been observed decline in prevalence of low femur neck bone density among older adults, but however, in this particular study, it was noted that those with vision impairments still remained at high risk for hip fractures. So even if there is something that's decreasing or whatnot, or something that is kind of supporting or decreasing risk, visual impairment still remains a high factor for fall risk with hip injury. And then a study recently in 2022 revealed that most hip fractures in older adults are directly related or fall related, that vision impairment significantly contributes to these falls directly. And this is one of the most recent studies I could find. So in 2019, this is a huge study of over 11,000 participants aged 65 or older. And this study is interesting because it looked at fear of falling as well. And older adults with vision impairment had a higher prevalence of falls. About 27.6% experienced falls in the past, in the very past year. And then 18.8% reported a fall in the past month. This is the increase of fear of falling and activity limitation was found in this study. So 48.3%, that's a significant number, had fear of falling. And then 50.8% limited activities due to that fear of falling directly. So the higher rates did persist, even when accounting with other demographic and health factors, such as like chronic conditions or health conditions, other health-related factors that would directly affect falls or balance. So let's talk about mobility a little bit. So mobility is very complex. It's every part of our lives on a daily basis. When we're talking about occupational therapy or within the field of occupational therapy, we're also often talking about functional mobility. So being able to transport items from one place to another, or being able to find items, being able to stand and do a task for a long period of time, or being able to be in both complex or static environments. So maybe environments that are changing versus environments that are unchanging. And a lot of different elements are involved as far as fall risk when we're talking about mobility. And on the slide, I've kind of listed some main ones. Of course, risk factors for falls in studies are primarily, especially those that involve fractures, include older age, also female sex, and history of cardiovascular disease, stroke, diabetes, arthritis, walking disabilities, or different changes in rhythm of walking and gait. depression and then use of certain medications, but also visual problems. So, and with chronic health conditions, we know this is a risk factor. We know as we age, naturally, we have a decrease in strength, or it's a little bit more difficult to maintain strength. Decreased sleep has been documented in a large body of research for those who are older, primarily due to quality of sleep or the amount of sleep, but the quality amount of deep sleep and REM sleep. And then pharmacy, so medication and polypharmacy is considered any more than 4 medications or 4 or more medications as an increased risk for falls. Decreased ability to dual task as we get older. So being able to have a conversation while you're walking across the room, or being able to think about something that just happened or plan for where you're going while you're walking, or being mobile. Being able to look in the pantry, find something, reach for it, while also thinking about what you're going to find next, or what you need to do next in the step of the task that you're doing. Or that's more of a cognition thing. It's very difficult for our brain. It's fatiguing, particularly as we get older, to be able to, for our brain to switch between ideas or switch our attention. We can't actually multitask. That's actually kind of something that's we're not able to do. Even when we're younger, it just appears like it because our brain is very more efficient at switching attention. But that switch of attention does take a lot of energy, and cognition, our ability to be able to dual task, that cognitive element does decrease as we get older. And along with that, our decreased reaction speed as we get older, being able to reach and follow through. And then, of course, and that's in those dynamic environments that I was talking about, or things that are changing, such as in the grocery store where there's people, or in a crowded space, or in a park or something outside where there are elements that are moving, or crossing the street, navigating both indoor and outdoor environments that are changing, and driving. And the environmental hazards often are attributed, and we'll talk a little bit about different ways to address the environment, and being able to address different barriers that may exist, and being able to modify those in different ways to help us prevent falls, and different ways that even with the outside of our homes that we can address environmental hazards. Anxiety, we talked about the study in 2019 where fear of falling, and it can greatly increase the fear of another, or the impact of another fall, also the risk of another fall. And then we have decreased balance. And this is often talked about. A lot of fall education programming in the community is directly related to balance. And the most important thing to remember about balance is it's heavily, it requires a lot of our brain, and it requires, it's definitely decreases as we get older, if we don't maintain it, but it's a triad. So it's kind of like a stool, if you will. There's 3 pieces to it, big pieces, including our vestibular system, or our inner ear, and ability to really understand kind of where we are, and as far as the equilibrium, as far as what we feel, as far as that sense. And proprioception is kind of gathering that sensory feedback from our joints, and as far as how much maybe your knee is bent, or how much your elbow is bent. And then, of course, all this information coming back to your brain deciding how to react based on what it feels. As we get older, these can tend to, and also not just from stroke or from other conditions, but they do tend to deteriorate or become slower, and this information isn't always correct. And then vision, and I have that in bold, of course. This is a huge, definitely a leg of the stool, and it's a big part of this. And if you can think of kind of, I put the vestibular system at the top, or that inner ear sense of equilibrium. Dizziness is a huge piece of why, also a risk factor of why people fall, and being able to manage postural hypotension and some of the things, hypertension, and some of the things that go along with being dizzy, and understanding which tasks make them dizzy and how to maybe accommodate for that. That's a huge part of what we end up doing in the home, and working with people when they're maybe putting their their shoes on or getting dressed or being able to go outside or getting ready to cook something in the kitchen or being in the bathroom and doing different things that they do every day. The vestibular system, when the proprioception system, so that feedback from joints, or the vision system, or what we're gathering through our eyes, the information that we gather through our eyes about our environment, where we are, how much light, so on and so forth, that we can gather from that system. When either one of those systems are messed up, the vestibular system kind of comes in and tries to make a decision and kind of fill in information, if you will. And what happens is the vestibular system can get overloaded, particularly when vision and proprioception are kind of not matching, or this, a good example of that would be in the car when we're not looking and we're trying not to look, and they always tell you to look at the horizon and so on and so forth, as far as to try to maintain stability. Gathering information via your eyes and matching it to what you're feeling is a huge part, and the vestibular system can get overwhelmed when one of these areas has a deficit in it. So with acuity loss, and we're talk about specifically, we'll go through this kind of vision list here, and with visual impact of visual acuity is really the limited ability for mobility to anticipate obstacles, to read signs, and read and complete different tasks that while we're being mobile. It is affected by the environment and environmental factors like the brightness and darkness, how much sunlight is being let in, whether there's shadows, and so on and so forth. It's affected by visual fatigue, and also can be affected by medication as well. Visual field loss, and that's definitely, so we have, it affects the area seen when we're looking straight ahead. So we have about, give or take 180 degrees or so horizontally, and the central field is about 20 degrees, give or take. And loss does impact mobility significantly, especially in the home and community environments, and it can result in missing obstacles or even larger objects if the field of that's missing is big enough, such as cars. So as we go through this list of vision deficits, you can see that even different binocular based, so double vision happens when one eye is seeing doesn't quite match up with what the other eye is seeing, or the image on the back of the retina is a little different in each eye, and this can result in different types of diplopia or double vision. There's also a glare sensitivity that can affect your ability. So glare is basically the significance of feeling like there's a lot of light shining, or a significant impact of processing at the back of the eye. And this is really common, particularly in glaucoma. And there's lots of research that goes into this, but also with people who have central based deficits, macular degeneration. A lot of times the rod cells, or the cells in the peripheral vision, they're very, very sensitive to light. There are night vision cells, if you will, and a lot of times glare and kind of photophobia, or the intense feeling of light and uncomfortable kind of feeling of glare, can greatly impact our ability to move around. Decreased low contrast acuity. I mentioned this, and low contrast acuity is also called contrast sensitivity, or ability to tell the difference between gradations, and maybe particularly of curbs, or being able to be outside when it's maybe a little cloudy or foggy, or contrast in our homes where we may have an all-white bathroom with white towels. And if you think about being mobile in that environment and all the things you have to do, and bending and leaning and grabbing and reaching and all those things that we're doing in a bathroom, contrast can greatly play a part in our ability to be safe in that environment. And same with being in the kitchen as well. Decreased color perception as we get older, and different visual perceptual disturbances also. Charles Bonnet syndrome, or different abilities, our brain really doesn't like to have deficits in our visual fields. So a lot of times it's putting different things there, it's misinterpreting, you may be seeing distortions, those kinds of things in your central field, or even things that are moving or things that aren't really there. And that's just something that our brain is trying to fill in the areas that of weakness in our visual field. That definitely can affect our visual mobility, our functional mobility, our ability to move around safely. A decreased or lack of stereopsis, I mentioned that, where things look kind of flat. This typically will be when we have one eye that's significantly more damaged, or one eye that is pretty good maybe, or one that's blind or almost blind completely. And that's really hard to get a 3D feeling. You can develop monocular-based vision depth perception, if you will, based on just learning and practicing relative size and those kinds of things. However, in general, the lack of the ability to see in 3D definitely affects our ability to be able to measure distances, being able to walk off curves, recognize different cracks and gradations in the ground, maybe outside. And when we're reaching for things, not overcompensating or reaching too far forward and kind of outside of our base of support, if you will, which a lot of times can increase falls. Change in lighting needs as we get older in general, and also with vision impairment, our lighting needs and preferences change based on a glare and the quality of light, or the color, or the brightness that we need, and then decreased overall visual efficiency. So as we have developed, or as we get older, or maybe we've developed a vision impairment, or we have visual impairment, a lot of times we aren't moving our eyes as much. Maybe we're reaching more instead of looking and following when we're opening a cabinet. We may not be using our vision as much, and our efficiency of moving our eyes and controlling our eyes and using them for scanning environments even, or even our efficiency to be able to move our eyes and our head at the same time and gather information can decrease if we don't use it. So that's another reason, or another risk factor for falls, directly related to vision and vision loss. So I always like to talk about how this analogy, I feel like it provides a really good foundation of understanding glare and understanding scotomas and weaknesses in the back of the eyes and retinopathies, is understanding how the eye works like a camera. And as we can see the anterior chamber there and kind of the cornea and the part of the eye with the lens and the iris, you can kind of think about that as a camera. And of course, cameras work based on light. So do our eyes. Relatively a third of your brain is dedicated to processing light, or the information coming from your eyes. Your anterior chamber is very much like the lens of the eye, and the barrel of the eye is more the central part of the eye and whatnot, to the barrel of the camera. And as light comes in, the iris, same thing on a camera, controls the amount of light, and then the lens controls how that's refracted into or to the back of the camera. So the back of the eye is the retina, of course, and at the back of the camera, well, nowadays it's more of a computer chip, or a charge coupled device, if you will, more of an image sensor. And this can be compared to what used to be film. Of course, film's now used as well. Again, it's coming back and whatnot. However, the retina, really, if you can think of a comparison, it's compared to that film of the camera. And the retina is processing that light that's coming through the lens of a camera. It's processing as it comes through that anterior chamber and the front parts of the eye and the mid parts of the eye. And it goes toward the back of the eye as the retina processes that in a bunch of chemical reactions and whatnot. It's sending that information through the optic nerve, much like in a camera, we might send information to the computer through a cable or through Bluetooth, if you will now, and whatnot, or different SD-based cards or reading cards. And as it goes into the light, is processed by the retina and goes into the brain, it goes to the back of the brain and then kind of forward, and then visual processing happens and we get an image, just like much like information goes into a computer and we see an image based on the data collected from a camera. Of course, we know that when there's issues such as particularly in the central part or in the macula, as you can see here, the most central part is the fovea, which is the center of the macula and the central vision. That's where we collect a lot of most information for acuity or being able to see details and colors and those kinds of things. So when there's an error there, we're not processing some of that information back to the brain. And this is an image taken from Bloomfield, and we can see I talked about briefly how in the center part of the retina is a concentration of what we call cone cells. And this is part of what that dies off during the different retinopathies and whatnot, the maculopathies that directly affect the central part of vision. And there are cones in the periphery and whatnot, but this is just breaking down how a lot of our information that comes from these cone cells or the central part of our vision is analyzing information that the brain will then use to analyze form and color and much detail. Where it's more of our what process of visual perception, if you will. And then the rods are more in the periphery. Those are the very light sensitive cells. And really they're not meant for detail, but they're meant for analysis of motion and spatial relations. Both of these together do contribute to mobility and safe mobility. So central versus peripheral vision. This is a good, we talked about stereopsis, we talked about binocular vision, and we briefly talked about peripheral and central vision. And you can kind of see here in that first image, you can see how the back of the eye of one, or you can see what one visual field sees as far as the right eye versus the left eye, and how they come together to form one image. If there was an error in one of those, you can see how it might produce a diplopia or a horizontal or vertical difference between the eyes, which can cause definitely a lot of errors in being able to navigate stairs or different obstacles in a house or outside environment, particularly in changing environments or dynamic environments. And you can see in that right picture there, kind of the degrees of our field of view. It's very helpful to understand what the field of view actually looks like, or our traditional field of view, because if you think about kind of if you're standing at the top of a triangle, if you will, the base of the triangle, the two other points of the triangle being out in front of you, that area that's closest to you is a much smaller field of view. So sometimes backing up and allowing for more field of view can allow for better orientation. And then versus moving in and getting some relative magnification or being able to see detail. So in that 18 degrees of vision, 18 to 20 for our central vision or the macular based. Okay, this is just a viewpoint from a different perspective and showing kind of where our blind spot is and kind of where our central 20 degrees is for that acuity versus more of our peripheral based vision and going out from the center of the eye. This is important to understand that as you get further away from the central part of the eye, your ability to perceive or the available acuity, okay, perceiving detail does go down. So as we're training maybe a parafoveal spot, like a preferred retinal loci. So an area maybe that you've had a mapping done of your eye, and you know where there is a spot that is remaining or good vision. Well, if that is outside of 10 degrees, really outside of 5 degrees, as further that spot is out that you're utilizing maybe as another viewpoint versus your central view, the available acuity there does go down as you go out into the periphery and use more of those rod cells and whatnot, which are really meant for gross kind of detail versus fine detail, which is more of the central based vision. Okay, so we're going to use the word vision as an acronym for kind of preventing falls, and we'll walk through this acronym together. And I think this is a good reminder. It helps us remember what each of these areas are and helping us to kind of understand and hopefully not only different strategies, but tools and resources and so on and so forth within each area. We're going to start with vigilance and staying alert and aware and taking care of our wellness, really understanding where we are, but not only being aware of our surroundings, but also understanding how much we're sleeping, understanding what our medications are, and so on and so forth, and making sure that we're educated on those things to be able to be vigilant. Illuminating, lighting, contrast, we'll go into detail for that. And safety, we'll talk about different checklists for safety. And hazards within the home, particularly innovating. So we'll talk about different tools and technology and strategies. We briefly mentioned some of those already. We'll go into some more detail. And then organization, so keeping things clear and order and consistent. What does that mean? What does that look like? And then network, we'll end on network. And this is an interesting one, an interesting verb for preventing falls. I don't think I found anything around there, but it's huge about communicating and sharing with others, and also maximizing or your remaining vision through a corrective vision rehabilitation program, which involves more than just occupational therapy. It involves all the resources, including what we're doing today. So let's talk about vigilance. So vigilance includes self-assessment, understanding what's your fall risk. We talked about risk factors, breaking it down, being able to stay strong mentally and physically, in different ways and methods of doing that. Getting enough sleep. So 7 to 9 hours, we talked about how decreased sleep is an increased risk factor for falls, particularly in the older population, but even more so for those with vision impairment. And that's partly to do with circadian rhythm and some things that mess with our ability to be able to stay on a time clock, if you will, and being able to go to sleep at certain times with vision impairment. We'll talk a little bit more about that. And then understanding medications, right? So polypharmacy and understanding different how different medications can have side effects on vision, that information and being able to be educated on that, and feeling empowered to be able to have conversations with our doctors about that when we're in their offices talking and having conversations with them, and they're recommending different medications. So self-assessment. So I have a QR code on here. If you put your camera over that particular QR code, this will go directly to the National Council on Aging's their free falls checkup. I love this particular tool. It's very good. Honestly, just walking through it can provide a lot of education, much of what we already talked to, but in a much more concise manner. And you're able to calculate your risk for falls and understand some of the reasons and so on and so forth, and then bring that to your doctor or your healthcare provider and have a conversation with them about, hey, this is what I'm seeing. What do you recommend? What do you refer as far as what I might be able to do or what we might be able to address together collaboratively? Staying strong. So I have some links here to two different resources. If you have a great community program, you have a great gym, you have a routine for wellness, not only physical, but also mental, that's wonderful. There are so many great tools out there today. I'm just going to highlight AARP's virtual community center. And also we'll highlight the Fidelity Hub, which is also a part of the National Council on Aging. They have several different falls prevention evidence-based programming that they have listed there, and you can see where that might be held or where that might be local to you to be able to participate in an actual group falls education evidence-based, which means that it's been tested and researched and found to be able to prevent falls, or found different evidence as far as its effectiveness within the community. Also, you have other wellness and based events that are including different YMCAs and in different other community-based senior centers, and also your organizations and associations and foundations that have them in your local community. These are two different places that I recommend checking out, and they have some wonderful support on there as far as education on how this is your ability and why it's important to stay strong, but also the mental and wellness factors that are involved. Sleep is huge. We all should get 7 to 9 hours of sleep a night. That's a lot of sleep. Maybe we are giving ourselves the chance to do that, but maybe we're not achieving that. It's definitely more difficult for individuals with vision impairment to have a rhythm. So we really have two things that determine whether or not we're sleepy. We have kind of a barometer, if you will, of adenosine, which kind of builds up throughout the day, and eventually makes us sleep and then it kind of starts over the next day, if you will. But caffeine can definitely limit the effectiveness of adenosine, at least short term. And then when caffeine wears off, so it can take 6 to 7 hours for caffeine to wear off. That's a very long amount of time. And then after it wears off, adenosine honestly takes over. It almost like, if you can think of like an explosion, and it makes us want to even sleepier than we would have been without the caffeine. So limiting caffeine and taking it or only having coffee maybe in the morning, and with the idea that when you're going to go to sleep, is a very good strategy for sure for helping with sleep, the amount and also quality of sleep. Sleep directly is connected with increase, or lack of sleep is directly connected with decreased ability to navigate, decreased balance, decreased visual coordination, hand-eye coordination, foot-eye coordination, and our ability to process information, and that visual perceptual part where information's coming from the back into our brain and processing what we're going to do next. That reaction speed is directly also connected with sleep and the amount and quality of sleep that we get. So besides adenosine and kind of that barometer, if you will, we also have light, right? So as we have over the years of human history have created artificial lighting, we have also kind of greatly shortened the amount that we sleep because we have created artificial light. It used to be sun up, sun down. That's kind of how our circadian rhythm followed. Our melatonin was released from our pineal glands a little after maybe dusk, and so on and so forth. But now we have a lot of artificial light, including artificial light that we put very close to our eyes, coming from blue light LEDs, a lot of times from our devices. And this can significantly affect our ability to go to sleep. Even just a little bit of light, even mood lighting, if you will, which is kind of maybe a very low amount of lux, and from just a bedside lamp, can still delay the release of melatonin at night by up to 3 hours, and making it more difficult for us to go to sleep. And melatonin doesn't necessarily make us go to sleep. It's not the reason that we sleep, but it's kind of like the messenger that says, it's dark, it's dark. It's time to sleep. And it does help with that, initiate the different processes in the brain to help us sleep. So I've highlighted here the National Sleep Foundation and also sleepfoundation.org. They're two different sites. They have some great self-assessment tools, as well as learning more about sleep in general and sleep hygiene, or being able to develop a pattern for yourself, understanding different apps and technology that can help along the way, and help you get a better night's sleep. Again, it's supposed to be a third of our life. It's a huge, it definitely impacts our ability to be safe in a multitude of ways, and also affects our fatigue overall in general, and being able to do things that we want to do every day. And then understanding medications. This is a QR code for going to Needy Meds or Be MedWise. They have an absolutely wonderful website for toolkits for understanding medication, being able to, again, of course, collaborate and talk with your physician and pharmacist and those healthcare providers that are involved in your medication. Lighting. So when we talk about vision, we talked about light, and we know that roughly 80% of our sensory information comes through our eyes via form of light. That's a huge amount, and we know that 1/3 of our brain is completely dedicated to processing light and information from light. Lighting is huge. Good lighting can decrease falls, improving balance, reducing fear of falling, enhancing sleep quality, and increasing safety awareness. So really everything that we talked about kind of wrapped up into one. Just everyday environmental conditions, such as indoor and outdoor lighting. There's studies suggest that quality of good lighting directly affects our ability to stay mobile for longer and being able to understand our own lighting conditions within our home. Understanding preferences of lighting types and qualities is very important, and also understanding how to enhance home illumination. I have many clients who ask, I want to go to Lowe's and I want to buy a light bulb, but I don't know what what that looks like. Like, what does this LM mean on here? What does it mean? How do I know that I'm getting a light bulb that is soft white, like a white light? Or what's a fluorescent light? What's the benefits of LED? What are the different types of LED lights? So quality lighting is key, decreasing shadows, allowing for variability, or dimmers and color changing light bulbs also can be very effective in improving your ability to stay on your feet. Task area lighting is very important, particularly for decreasing shadows and also increasing your ability to spot and be able to see detail. And adjustable window and light coverings to kind of adjust lighting, and even when different lamp shades. We have shapers. Sometimes I'll recommend that different people will put even wax paper over certain lights to kind of diffuse the light. Ambient lighting is great. However, with movement and being mobile, it can create a lot of shadows, and you do need to have more than one source of light typically to have an effective environment to decrease falls. So persons with visual impairments need about 3 times as much light. That's a quote that I gathered from a actually interior designing based book. And it's something that we're well aware of. However, just understanding that also that processing I talked about with the brain having to spend an enormous amount of energy processing light, it's important to understand for fatigue and kind of energy management that we're not always having bright lights all the time, even though it's kind of a catch-22. Maybe we want to use that light to be able to see, but using it for long periods of time, particularly LEDs, is directly connected to different damage and whatnot to the back of the eye. So it's kind of, again, that catch-22. So we want to be careful that we're managing energy, but also not damaging or overusing the ability to process light. Some examples of lighting. In that first picture, you can see that that's a kitchen. There's under cabinet lighting, there's ambient lighting, but there's also under cabinet lighting helping with task and kind of decreasing some of those shadows where light's coming from different sources, and it's pretty diffuse as well. It's in strips, so it's not spotted at a particular spot on the counter. There is some glare here and whatnot, and you might need to have like a less shiny surface or a covering or something to help with that. There's some lights that can go along, motion sensor lights along a hallway or along the stairs to help with illumination in areas, particularly where there's a fall risk, particularly in stairs and hallways when you're getting up at night. You don't want to have, you want to have as little amount of light as possible at night, actually, until you have, that's why motion sensor lighting is so great at night. Even if there's a light dark adaptation and you have difficulty adjusting to it, you can have lots of little that don't put out too much light, each one and whatnot, to help you navigate to the bathroom, if you will. But even a little bit of light, again, is can disturb our sleep. The Day Better bulbs is just an example of a fully controllable smart-based system where you can have it change from a brighter light during the day, which has been shown to help promote sleep as well, and being able to help keep us awake during the day when we're supposed to be awake, and then kind of go dimmer at night. They have different colors as well, where it can go from more cool or warm to warm colors at nighttime. And then these little light for the toilet seat is something that I think started kind of like a gimmick and whatnot, but it can be useful for being able to illuminate in the bathroom, the toilet seat. This is just some education as far as the color of light and kind of helping to see that in Kelvin or the K, as it gets higher, it's more of a bluer based light, and a lower is more of a warmer or reddish based light within the color spectrum, of course, that we have, which is a very limited part of the light spectrum that we have in visible light. However, you can see at the bottom is a match flame, which is very red, and then all the way up, and then where you can see where daylight and different suns are. So the sun, the regular daylight's about 55 to 6500 K. So you have a light bulb and it has on there that this is a 4000 K bulb or Kelvin bulb. You can kind of see what color that's going to be before you may purchase that and try it. Color is really a preference. Again, it does affect your as far as your quality and whatnot. A kind of multi-spectrum or multi-color bulb, more of a fluorescent based long bulb like a light bulb, like a light or whatnot, may contain different colors and so on and so forth, and we'll talk about that in a second when we talk about these spectral graphs. You can see in this picture, it's a little small, but the G at the bottom of the left column is our visible light. And you can see in those A through F, you can see the different spectrums for different types of light bulbs. You can see fluorescence has a lot of spikes, if you will, and limited amount or range of color. Incandescent is very gradual up toward, of course, very long wavelengths of light. We have access to very small amounts of blue light. Blue light tends to scatter in our eyes, and that's why it's also very fatiguing. It's a very shorter wavelength of light, and we have shorter amounts or a little smaller amounts of that and access in our visual spectrum, as you can see, visible spectrum. And you can see the halogen light and how it includes more of the actual spectrum, and then a white LED versus more of a cool white LED, or a warm white LED versus a cool white LED there as well. And so if you can kind of think about, visualize superimposing our visible spectrum over these lights, you can kind of see how we might get more quality or detail out of maybe a traditional incandescent bulb or a warm LED bulb, as far as available color and available contrast, and maybe decreased glare as well. And then to the right of that is a kind of how many lumens do you need? So the LM, or the lumens, in a particular light bulb. This is just a little chart to understand as far as the wattage and what the brightness would be. Again, when you're going to Lowe's and you're looking at a light, you might be looking for, okay, well, I know that, my sister has these lights in her bathroom. They're so wonderful. I love them. I can see so well. It's, there's not a lot of glare. They're really good. And you look at kind of the bulb and it says that they're, a 4,500 Kelvin and it's 800 lumens. What does that mean? Well, you can kind of see here, that's the brightness as it goes up. Typically overhead lights are much brighter because they are providing illumination over more space. But a lot of my clients on 10 to 800 plus lumens in different light bulbs are very useful in their home in multiple situations, and also for task lighting, understanding that if you have an 800 plus lumen bulb, and maybe a gooseneck light or something like that shine on directly within maybe 2 feet of something, that's going to be a lot of information, a lot of light coming. It can be very fatiguing, but it might be able to offer you the chance to read something simple, maybe spot read a date or something like that, whereas maybe you couldn't before. So glare and contrast together. So eliminating glare and increasing contrast in the home is something that you can do to decrease your risk of falls significantly. I just have some examples here of the LX and whatnot, and Chroma. Maybe you've heard of the Chroma color correction glasses for those who have color blindness. They also have an LX series, which is, I put a QR code if you'd like to check that out. Amber or yellow lens, sometimes even plum, depending. It's a very much preference on decreasing glare and increasing contrast as well. You can increase contrast in the home by adding, even just in the middle picture, there's some orange note cards. You can add orange duct tape or whatnot. This was just a very much more simple way. And she had orange note cards at her eye height to kind of see and remember in her home different navigational points. And then, of course, using duct tape and or paint on stairs is a very beneficial way to help increase contrast. And using colored towels, which not a lot of people like to do. Everybody likes white because you can bleach them and whatnot. But using colored towels can be a very effective way to add contrast. Same with adding tape in the bathroom, maybe at thresholds, going into a walk-in shower or in a tub or on grab bars. You can even wrap the tape around the grab bars using some paint that distinguishes from the baseboard paint, can give you some good navigation points as well within the home. So this is a video.
Is aware of harms. But it's also where a lot of harms can happen for adults. Actually, CDC study initiative is here to help you improve home safety to prevent falls one room at a time. To make your home safer, you can take simple steps such as picking up the clutter off the floor. This includes shoes, broom, and buildings. Make sure your furniture is arranged so there's a clear walking path around rooms. You can install night lights throughout your home so you can see better in low light or when it's dark. When it comes to the kitchen, it's all about keeping things practical. Start by keeping items or utensils that you use often within arm's reach. And if there's something that's out of reach, always make sure to use a sturdy step stool with a handrail instead of a chair. Cleanliness is key. Make sure surfaces and floors are always clean. If there's a spill, clean it up as soon as possible. If your home has stairs, remove clutter from the steps and make sure the stairway is always clear. Something else you can do is to have bright overhead lighting at the top and bottom of stairs. Make sure you have handrails on both sides of the stairs. Your carpeting or runners are fastened down, and repair any loose or damaged steps. In bedrooms, be sure to have a light close to your bed. You can also make sure any rugs are fixed in place and secure. In bathrooms, consider adding non-slip rubber mats or strips in the shower or tub. You can also install grab bars near the shower, the bathtub, and the toilet for support. Some projects can be too big to do alone. Remember to ask for help for things like installing lighting or handrails. These small changes throughout your house add up to make a big difference in helping you prevent falls.
So that's from the STEADY program. The CDC put out a bunch of information on and this is their home safety tour. If you're interested in going to their STEADY home, their YouTube page, they have other videos as well. Many of you have probably heard this, but this is the safety part of this, and they're using some really good checklists. So in the next slide here, I have the rebuild checklist. So this is a safety checklist for the home, and it's a valuable tool. It was created in partnership with the Administration on Aging and the American Occupational Therapy Association to really ensure the safety and accessibility of our homes, especially for the elderly. It is a very detailed list, and if you search for this list, just not going to directly to this particular pamphlet, you may find other ones that are even more detailed, which are particularly used by occupational therapists that go into the home and fill those out. And there's actually kind of a corresponding checklist for what they may or may not do and different solutions that might increase the safety within your home. This is a free tool though, and then kind of a really good thing to walk through. I love how it's organized as far as different safety mechanisms, but not just modifying the environment, such as adding a grab bar, but thinking about also electrical safety and different fire safety. And it's gathered information from a lot of different sources to be able to increase safety and stability within the home and decrease falls. Now, innovation. So utilizing innovative tools. This is a modern smart home. There are many different devices out there, like adaptive devices through smart plugs and voice controlled lighting, ergonomic tools, and different, even just simple, not just high tech, but even low tech, such as a shower chair. Incorporating adaptive technologies and tools to assist in daily tasks is also something. Voice controlled lighting and appliances. We talked about the smart bulbs. That's something that can be very useful within the home, and being able to modify the environment to help increase safety and decrease falls. Some innovative tools I wanted to highlight: the WRAP 920 ARs. They were developed in Japan as potential for being able to increase depth perception. So very much like the Apple wearable that's currently out, the Vision Pro, that uses 2 cameras to kind of redirect the images to maybe one eye, to be able to help create more of a sense of depth, if you will. It is something, this is an augmented reality device, so that's what the AR stands for at the end. It's not a virtual reality device per se. But augmented reality means that you have a see-through ability, and you're seeing what's on the screen kind of within your environment. It's still immersive. These things are still in development, but if you're interested in checking that out, that's what that QR code is. MIT did an article on this. It's a very interesting device and potential for the future. Other things listed in this slide, including bioptics. This is an Occutech bioptic. There's also an ocular telescope for being able to see signs, even at the grocery store, different navigational points. And then also your camera. This is just my camera from quite a long ways from the stop sign on my street, and different color views. This is built-in in iOS as far as the magnifier tool, being able to zoom in and also change color and contrast, and really being able to, a lot of magnifiers, even with lights on them, aren't going to give you that increased contrast like a digital magnification tool would. And of course, this is a digital zoom. It's not an optical zoom. So an optical zoom would actually be like the macular telescope there, where it actually has different lenses in it that are increasing the magnification and bringing information to you, like the bioptic does well. But this is a digital zoom, so it's not as good quality, but they've gotten a lot better for sure over the years, and it can be a very useful tool for helping navigating, particularly in an outdoor environment. These are just a few. There are so many. On the next slide here, you can see these are just other tools for fall detection and wearables, such as the watch and the Apple Watch. It definitely works. It has documented use for preventing different AFib events, and also for falls and detection, and being able for caregivers being able to see. I have personally experienced this with my father as well. It alerted me with a fall. Sometimes it doesn't always get it right, but it's worth it to check in. And there's a Lazarillo app. There's many GPS-based app and wayfinding apps for those who are visually impaired or have blindness. And this is one of them that I really like. It's free to download and free to try. And then, of course, the free white cane program from the Federation of the Blind is available. And then this is just an example of an external, not your smartphone device, or the HumanWare device that does a whole lot of different things that maybe different apps like Seeing AI or Be My Eyes and so on and so forth could do. But this is with a separate device that has its own light and its own operating system and different functionalities as well, including GPS. And then different. This is an article from a university that is doing different wearable blind navigation. If you just do wearable blind search for wearable blind navigation, there's just a lot of going on right now, including in GPS-based applications like Lazarillo, and also different wearables using maybe LiDAR technology, which is light technology, which is now in our iPhones. And organization. So when I talked about dual tasking in the environment and the risk for falling based on our ability to switch attention and move quickly, and we don't have this good, we're not as eloquent on our feet, if you will, and whatnot, being able to switch attention as well. And organization can help with this. It can help with being able to navigate environments, being able to find things, save energy, which also can directly connect to our sleep quality and our mental health quality and our ability to do more things of what we want to do versus going through papers for 3 hours a day and trying to find things. These are just some examples of systems that are very similar to things that I've done with clients in their home, and what the Lighthouse and other community-based programs are very good at providing different tools and resources for this as well. The one that's to the left is a pantry, and as you can see, it's much easier to scan with labels and very high contrast containers, and being able to do that without having to reach behind and trying to find, and again, takes energy, but also there's more risk of fall there. Then with an organized home, it kind of clears spaces. There's a rug there, and that's fine as long as it's secure, and so on and so forth. I'm not going to steal all your rugs. Has some good contrast as well. There is some glare on the flooring, which can be taken care of as well with an overcoat or some other ways of decreasing some of the glare from the overhead lighting, the can lighting as well, and coming in from, but there are some good window shades there as well, and some good window clear shades can help with some of that glare. And then an organization system for both papers, and this is just a system that worked for one of my clients for putting their audio tapes on a rope to keep them organized, to be able to not have to search all over for a white tape on the floor that she had, which was great. And the last part of this is networking. Thank you for sticking with me here. And this is the preferred low vision rehabilitation model for vision impairment. And it really is, its aim and purpose is to improve the vision that you have remaining. And it involves a lot of people. That's why I called this network. It involves, of course, an ODMD and particularly a low vision optometrist and whatnot involved with your ophthalmology partnership as well. And at the top of this, you can see occupational therapy, or OT. That's part of the Venn diagram with those very critical parallel services that are offered in the low vision blindness community, including certified rehabilitation vision therapist and low vision therapist certified, and then the orientation mobility specialist, which is, they're absolutely amazing. They can work with anybody and all throughout the spectrum, our age spectrum, and different visual abilities and disabilities, or indoor, outdoor navigation, cane, non-cane use, you name it, technology, you're people. And occupational therapy is the healthcare portion of this, and really helping guide and facilitate this. And then, of course, you have your support services, and it goes in a circle, and understanding diagnosis management, ongoing care. And then, of course, right, that kind of encompasses everything as patient education, which is a very key into empowering you to be able to continue doing what you want to do, or learning different ways of doing what you want to do. And it encompasses the whole person and addresses the areas of life, honestly, that have most been affected. Occupational therapy is really good kind of at identifying barriers and supports and recognizing, and I know what we talked about is a lot of information, a lot of technology, a lot of strategies, and really helping organize that into achievable goals for you, and being able to see you in your home for do that. And then this is a fall recovery video.
This educational video demonstrates how to get up from a fall.
So we don't want you to fall, but if you do, this is a great video on how to get up from a fall, just in case. It's a great called Fall Recovery. That's why I named it that. And it is a video showing how what you should be thinking if you're not feeling hurt or dizzy, and you are able to get into a quadruped-based position, remaining calm and getting to a chair. In order to put your stronger leg up, you'll see how she gathers herself to get up in a quadruped position or on hands and knees, if you will. And then she'll put her stronger leg first and using a chair, if you have one available, also calling for help. It walks through the steps of this very well. And being able to push up with your stronger leg and your arms, be able to turn and sit into the chair and get into a position to call for some help also. Really, again, this is a great opportunity to promote the voice activated ability to call through an Alexa device or other voice, Google Home or something like that, being able to call, or having your Siri set up on your phone where you can say, hey Siri, and make a FaceTime call to somebody that you know as far as for assistance or even to emergency services. And that's all I have. This is my contact information. I will stop sharing in just a second. This is Low Vision Works, the main office, but we service throughout the west coast of Florida. And that's the phone number. And if you'd like to contact me, that's my email. I'm happy to answer any questions at this time. Okay. All right, so I have the Q&A open here. And the first one says, would you be able to find the right agency to help? So I think this goes back to that network and kind of starting with being able to speak with your doctor about rehabilitation and understanding the differences between, again, there's community support services, there's occupational therapy, there's the Lighthouse and other services such as the Macular Degeneration Association, and all of those come together to be able to help. And so your doctor really is either your low vision optometrist and should be in coordination with their ophthalmologist, can help you refer. Sometimes they don't remember that this is kind of the preferred model, and others are, this is the only thing they know, and they understand that that's the entire rehab process, but being able to communicate with them about it is really the first step. All right, do I need a doctor's note stating that I need this? So that's an excellent question. So in Florida, you don't need a referral. However, for care, for occupational therapy services or any of the and the parallel services, it's a little different. You don't need a referral. Referrals are made. However, with occupational therapy being a healthcare provided service, we are always in collaboration with your doctor, either your referring optometrist or ophthalmologist, to making sure that we're getting their certification and approval on documentation and how many times we're seeing you, and really fulfilling a healthcare-based plan of care, if you will, and making sure that we're collaborating with them. Good question. How do you come to the house or do I go to a facility? Excellent question. So with our particular occupational therapy service, it's an outpatient service and we're going into the home. And also the community. So we may meet you at the grocery store, we may meet you at the bowling alley, whatever, may meet you at a pickleball court in your community or your community center. Well, a lot of the therapy is provided in your home, in your backyard, in your community, walking around on sidewalks or different community spaces, if you will, but also primarily in your home. So we might be doing cooking one day, we might be in your office the next, we may be going through and kind of cycling through different areas in your home, but our therapists come to you, our occupational therapy practitioners do come to you. We do have some people who come to the office, and we also have, but very, very few. And again, those parallel services will be in the community, and they have different they'll have different setups as well, where some will be provided in the home and others in the community and not in your home as well. Don't get enough sleep. How does that affect you? Wow. So sleep, I would recommend actually a book called Why We Sleep. It's a wonderful book, and it's the premise of it walks through how the lack of sleep or sleep deprivation through history and of research and whatnot affects everything and every organ system within our body, but particularly with vision impairment, the biggest thing here to remember is that it affects your energy level, which directly affects how your brain is able to process visual information and control your movement. So being able to process all the sensory information, being able to then perform an action such as a reaction to being able to step out of the way quickly, or being able to see, recognize, scan something in your environment, gather information, and make a decision to move or to reach. And lack of sleep directly can affect your ability to do that in a efficient and effective and safe fashion. Right. Would I get my devices from the occupational therapist? So that's an excellent question. So we're not provider of devices. So your optometrist and whatnot, or direct-based assistive technology provider and or community services, such as the Lighthouse or different providers, they might recommend occupational therapists. What we're most interested in is training you how to use it. So we're being able to work with you in a functional space with activities that are meaningful to you. So if you're interested in being able to do email, again, we're working with maybe something that was recommended by the Lighthouse. Maybe they recommended JAWS to you and so on and so forth. Maybe they provided even training on that, but now we're going to integrate that and grade it up and down, and really through a series of exercises and education and kind of putting that all together, how that might be able to promote a functional use of that, to be able to send and receive email or use your devices in a capacity that allows you to participate. Same thing with CCTVs and magnifiers and those kinds of things. We may recommend and bring more different types of lighting into the home, but a lot of times, again, in that collaborative model that I showed that diagram for, they're recommending those things, and we're again integrating them within the home to make sure that they're utilized in something that's meaningful, so they don't just get put in a drawer, or the CCTV doesn't get stuff stacked on them because it's just hard to use. And there's certain aspects of the vision retraining, particularly mapping out areas of vision that is still remaining. That's a huge part of whether or not that's even effective. So we want to work towards your threshold first, before we even really start integrating any of those external magnification and tools and those kinds of things that I talked about. Great question, though. Yeah, so they're talking about the eyeglasses, and it is amazing. I agree just how much it's changing, and it's changing every day. I do a huddle call for all of occupational therapists each week, and we have a technology segment, we have a research segment, and they just have exploded within the last year. But it's particularly, I'm very interested in new augmented and based reality opportunities and different research that's going on in that area. And then I have excellent webinar. I have a friend with Advanced MDA. Will the webinar be available? I will let Donna and Andrea answer that question. Pretty sure, hopefully so. And then read a book before you go to sleep. That will make you fall asleep quick. I love that, because actually one of the main research studies in how blue light has affected our ability to fall asleep and negatively, and being able to maintain REM sleep, or that kind of light sleep, where, that's the active part where we kind of have dreams and so on and so forth, helps allocate our memories, particularly for the day before. It's very important for restful sleep that we get REM sleep. But the main research studies that have been done in the condition that they used, the main research study I'm thinking about, used reading on the iPad versus reading a book as the alternative condition. And that was definitely something that helped promote sleep in a much better condition, and kind of as part of a sleep hygiene routine was reading a book, an actual book, with some low lighting and so on and so forth before you go to bed. Really relaxing option, and also listening to an audiobook as well. So thank you, everyone. I appreciate that's all the questions that I see in the Q&A.